Hi there, this is Matt Bowdler, also known as The Unfinished, and I'm doing a walkthrough video of my latest synth sound set for Native Instruments Massive, which is called Massive Darkscore 4. Now, some of you may have already purchased one of my previous Darkscore sound sets, but if you haven't, just to give you a quick overview of the style of content, they're very much aimed at dark, atmospheric sounds for hybrid electronic scoring for picture. But they're also very useful for a number of electronic genres such as dubstep, ambient, drum and bass, that kind of thing. Anything that basically needs dark and atmospheric and dynamic electronic synth sounds, then it's perfect for you. This particular sound set, normally I've in the past done 128 sounds for my sound sets. This one is 200, so there's lots in there. I got to around the 128 mark on this one and still had lots of ideas in my head and lots of things I wanted to add to really get the vibe I was going for Darkscore 4. So I just carried on, and we ended up with 200 sounds, which is great. Well, it's great for you anyway. Okay, well, without further ado, let's quickly just pop in here and take a look. So I've selected Massive Darkscore 4. We'll crack on with some bass lines. There are quite a lot of bass lines and synth sequences in this particular collection. So let's load up the very first patch and give it a whirl. Okay, so there we've got a nice punchy, percussive bass line, lots of energy going on there. One of the things I love about Massive in particular is the macros. If you're familiar with Native Instruments Massive, then you will know that the macros are basically shortcuts to control various parameters within the synth engine. I usually have the first two controlling the cutoff and resonance of the filters that I'm using, or filter that I'm using, depending. Then in 3 and 4, I'll have the two main effects. Here we have flanger and chorus. And then the bottom row is usually just anything else that I think just works well with the sound. So let's try some of those macros out on... How about autoerotic? I'm sure you're very keen to hear that. So let's adjust the cutoff. You get quite nice control through the modulation oscillators, I find on this. Let's try destroy. So you get some quite interesting noise with that. Just to also show you the attributes, I've tagged them up as best I can to make finding the right sound for you intuitive and quick. And also in the comments, although generally there's a bit of description of what the sound sounds like, sometimes I also do put in what my favourite macro controls are, and what they do, and how best to use the sounds, essentially. So let's just crack on, and we'll cut through a few sounds. A nice bit of evolving bass line there. Cool. What else have we got? So all these have a gritty, dynamic edge. There's lots of energy going on. So essentially, they're really useful for underpinning what you're trying to do. Stick them under some driving ostinato strings, or just even to supplement whatever percussion you're using. There's lots of opportunities for that. I try to design them with a reasonable amount of punch in the low end, but also some crispness in the higher frequencies as well. So there's a bit of range in there, because that's what brings out the dynamics for me, and also means that you've just got a bit more going on. What I find really useful about this sort of sound is that they just create a bit of extra interest below whatever else you have. So I do try to put together some reasonably complex sounds. He says then, picking out one of the simplest ones. This is one of my favourite ones. This is deep. Whether you can actually hear the lower bass elements of that via YouTube, I'm not so sure. So as you can see, we've just very quickly gone through a handful of patches there, and immediately you get a sense of what's going on. Lamborghini, I bet that's noisy. Punchy. What does the cutoff do on this one? That'll be one of the noisy ones then. What you may have noticed as we've just been scrolling through here, that there are some 5/4 time bass lines in there. I've put a few of those in there simply because 5/4 time signature is quite common when writing action music. So I've thrown a few in there just for a bit of variety. So there you go, that's a collection of the bass lines in there. We'll move on to some of the synth sequences, I think. Yeah, let's just check they are sequences. Okay, let's see what we've got going on here. So again, they're quite noisy and they move. You know, there's lots of energetic motion going on in there. So, wow, that's a noisy one. So there's a nice simple way of just adding some extra drive and dynamism to whatever music you're working on. So I'm just picking these sounds at random, so I'm not picking out the best ones or doing anything crazy like that. So if you're the kind of person who generally just likes synth sequences, arpeggios, bassline stuff to put underneath what you're working on, then this sound set's probably going to be quite useful for you. So we have got some slightly more melodic stuff like this one. What else have we got in here? Sounds a bit more bassliney than anything else. Some of the patches do work as bass lines as well as synth sequences, so you can play them across the whole range of the keyboard. So there you go. This one's in the description is a bass line, but as you can see, I've also selected melodic sequences because you can get something out of it playing it higher up the keyboard. Okay, one of the other strengths, in my opinion, of this sound set is the synth pads. So we'll play a few of them. They're not your straightforward sort of lush ambient synth pad. Again, because of the nature of the sound set, there's a lot of darker stuff going on there. So some of them work really well low down, some of them work better higher up. Let's play through the first few of them. So that's quite a nice, crisp, lively. That is actually slightly more pretty than some of them, like this one, for instance. So that's very atmospheric. You could roll that into a track, and instantly you've got darkness and menace and that kind of thing. So some of these pads, this is probably a soundscape, well, initially designed as a soundscape rather than a pad. So some of them aren't quite as melodic as others. Again, so here we have another barren, dirty soundscape. So not pretty, but again really quite effective setting up in the background of any track that you're looking to do. Oh, I like this one. So again, whilst it's still quite light and pretty, there are just those little elements of dirtiness in there. And again, lots of flexibility in those macros. Okay, let's check out one more. Spookiness. We like spookiness. Let's have a look at this. So quite a lot of stuff going on in the LFOs, controlling the oscillators here, including a bit of pitch wandering, which is why it's kind of spooky. Beefy one. And what have we got right down at the bottom? Oh, this is another one of my favourite pads. This is quite subtle. And yet, again, whilst it's subtle, there's still that slightly nervous energy, that kind of wandering a bit all over the place, not clean, basically, which is what Darkscore 4 is really all about. It's dark, gritty, dirty, noisy sounds. So even the pads have that element to them. Have a quick look at some of the drum stuff. I like to put in a couple of synth drum loops, just because I enjoy programming them. So with these, the macros are designed mostly, I mean, you've got some filter control there, and you have pattern control, which switches between slightly different patterns, but essentially it's about dropping out the kick, or dropping out the snare, or dropping out the metal elements, or the hi-hats. We also have some percussion loops, which are more sort of synthetic, loopy stuff rather than drums. So they're not strictly percussive, they're not really synths, they're just sort of stuff that's quite rhythmic and hard-hitting. So you can play them melodically, but that's probably not how they work best. Okay, so bass. Right, we need to find some bass here that isn't also going to be a bass line. One of the things I'd quite like to be able to do when using the browser is when you are selecting bass as your type here, it would be quite good to find a way of choosing stuff that isn't actually a bass line, so we could actually go straight in there and find what we're looking for. So we'll just pick one that I think is a bass line, then we'll go into the attributes and we can see, no, that's a bass sequence, so let's keep skipping until we find one that doesn't have the word sequence. Ah, there you go. Grunting, growling bass noise, that's what we're after. So that's quite a noisy bass. Let's find another one. I've also got some bass drops in here, so they tend to work best around middle C. That's what they're designed to do. So there's probably, I don't know, I think I did about 10 or 12. So some of them are slightly more tonal, and others some just have the pure bassness. Let's find one. Let's see if my memory works. So some quite nice bass drops for a bit of extra intrigue when you drop out the sounds. Okay, so there's some nice crunchy, deep, naughty basses in there, as well as all the bass lines, and I think we've got a couple of keys. So not exactly realistic from a physical modelling point of view, but still nice, slightly different synth sounds, just to add a bit of variety, really. So there's a few keys and mallets in there. It really is a handful, but they're just in there essentially to provide just something else on top of all the noisy stuff, something to cut through the mix. And we'll just finish off on some soundscapes. We'll just play these. So these are very much designed for the scene setting stuff. I mean, you can pop these underneath what you're working on and just let them do all the hard work, basically. So there you go. That's a little run through of what I've put together in Massive Darkscore 4. I hope you've enjoyed some of the stuff that you've heard here, and I shall also be, as I usually do, putting together a short little demo pack of maybe 15 sounds that can be downloaded freely from my website. So this is coming out on Friday the 22nd of March. I hope you've enjoyed this little overview and that you're interested in the sounds, and thanks for watching.